Role number 70 on this ladder is the Portfolio Carbon Baseline Builder, pulling in up to $300,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And their job is creating the definitive before photo across dozens or even hundreds of buildings.
I like to think of this as stepping on a scale before starting a diet.
Right. You can't prove to your investors that you've lost carbon if you don't have a standardized, defensible starting weight.
Exactly. And to get that starting weight, they are defining the boundaries for Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions.
Okay, for the listener, break those down real quick.
Sure. So Scope 1 being the natural gas burned on-site by boilers, things like that. Scope 2 being the electricity you purchase from the local grid.
And scope 3.
That's the tricky one. Scope 3 is the emissions hidden in the supply chain and tenant activities.
Got it.
But the real mechanism here is, the reason this pays so well, is normalization logic.
What does that mean in practice?
Well, think about a 100,000 square foot glass building in Miami. It consumes vastly different energy than an identical building in Seattle, right?
Oh, obviously. Way more air conditioning in Miami.
Right. So if you don't normalize the utility data for those specific climate zones, your baseline is statistically useless.
You'd just be comparing.
Apples to incredibly sweaty oranges.
Yeah, exactly.
Precisely. So this role scrapes thousands of utility bills and building management system exports, cleans the data, and builds a normalized map.
So it tells the portfolio owner exactly which, say, 5 buildings out of their 50 are secretly driving 80% of their emissions.
Yes. And once you have that map, you know exactly where to intervene.
Which leads us to the next logical step. Role 69. The Electrify Everything Retrofit Program Designer, commanding up to $320,000.
Another huge salary.
Yeah. And I find this one fascinating because they aren't just a consultant writing a memo that says, hey, heat pumps are great, you should buy some.
No, not at all. They're designing the actual choreography of electrification.
The choreography, explain that.
The choreography is the entire value proposition here. Imagine you own a fully occupied 40-story commercial tower. You cannot simply drop a massive electric heat pump on the roof and call it a day.
Right, because people are working inside.
Exactly. How do you sequence the removal of the fossil fuel systems without shutting down the building's heating in November?
Oh, wow. That's a nightmare.
And how do you upgrade the central electrical panels when the local utility says the street grid can't even handle the extra load yet?
So you are really solving a massive logistical puzzle in real time.
You are programming it. You create a repeatable sequence for mechanical, electrical, and building envelope upgrades so the rollout is perfectly coordinated.
I see. So it's the difference between a chaotic construction site that alienates all your tenants and a seamless transition that actually delivers lower emissions.
Exactly.
Okay, so now you have your baseline and you have your retrofit plan. But before you spend a dime, you have to secure the funding and appease the corporate board.
Which brings us to Role 68.
Right. Rule 68, the Climate Risk Disclosure Pack Builder, making up to $330,000.
The source material says they build disclosure-ready packs for physical risks.
Right. Things like extreme heat, coastal flooding, wildfires. But let me push back here for a second.
Sure.
Are corporations really paying over $300,000 a year for a remote worker to just, I don't know, make a scary list of weather hazards for their investors?
And if it were just a scary list, it would be a massive liability.
How so?
Well, if you simply hand an investor a map showing their assets are in a severe flood zone, their immediate reaction is going to be to sell the asset or pull funding.
Oh, right. Panic.
Exactly. So the output of this role is actually governance evidence. They take the raw climate hazard data and overlay the mitigation strategies.
Oh, so they translate the hazard into a controlled narrative.
They're showing the math. They're saying, yes, this building is in a flood zone, but here's the capital we have already allocated for deployable flood barriers and elevated backup generators.
It turns a glaring red flag into a green check mark for the SEC and the institutional investors.
You're bridging the gap between terrifying climate models and calm, credible corporate disclosure.
Okay, so you've disclosed your risks, you've secured the budget, and the building is up and running. Now you are on the hook to prove the building actually works the way you promised the board it would.
Right. We're moving from theory into measuring reality now.
Starting with the humans inside. Role 67 is the Digital Post-Occupancy Survey and Insights Lead, projected at up to $340,000.
This is where we measure what the building actually feels like to the occupants. We're talking about thermal comfort, acoustics, air quality perception, and glare.
So if you've ever worked in an office where the afternoon sun completely blinds you at your desk.
Oh, I've been there.
Or, the air feels so stale by 3 p.m. that you need 4 coffees just to stay awake, you are the exact data point this remote role is tracking.
But traditionally, post-occupancy surveys are just a generic PDF questionnaire that HR sends out, and the results just sort of go into a black hole.
Totally. Nobody ever reads them.
Right. But this role reinvents that process as a highly repeatable digital subscription-style system. They use digital survey templates to identify spatial patterns.
There's the patterns.
Yeah, so if everyone on the south-facing third floor complains about headaches at 2 p.m., that isn't just a random HR issue. It is an architectural failure.
Wow, that's a great point.
And owners pay top dollar for these insights because a building that makes people feel sluggish or uncomfortable leads directly to tenant churn.
And losing a major corporate lease costs millions.
Exactly. Proving your air quality and comfort are top tier directly supports your financial bottom line.
Now, alongside measuring the humans, you have to measure the machines. Role 66 is the Building Performance Monitoring Playbook Creator, sitting at up to $350,000.
Because modern buildings are absolutely covered in sensors, right? Measuring CO2, temperature, humidity, energy draw.
But an ocean of raw data is just noise to a facility manager.
It's totally overwhelming. I mean, you might have 10,000 data points firing every single minute.
So what does this role actually do?
This role writes the operational manual for that data. They define the KPI dashboards and the alert thresholds, but more importantly, they build the escalation workflows.
So it's accountability engineering.
Yes, exactly. They write the logic trees. Like, if a thermal comfort sensor drifts out of the acceptable range for more than 4 hours, who gets the alert?
Right.
And if the local facility team ignores it, when does it escalate to the regional director? They are turning raw sensor noise into rigorous operational discipline.
Which brings us to a really interesting intersection. You have the human feedback from Role 67 and the machine data from Role 66.
Right.
What happens when the data reveals that the building is failing because the architect's aesthetic vision is directly fighting the mechanical engineer's reality?
You need conflict resolution.
You need Role 65, the M-Architecture Energy Alignment Mediator, making up to $360,000.
MEP being mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And the source document notes that architecture and MEP often operate like two separate planets with totally different gravity.
It sounds like highly paid marriage counseling for the construction industry.
It basically is.
Imagine a scenario where a brilliant architect designs a massive, unshaded, west-facing glass facade because they want a beautiful view.
Oh, the engineers hate that.
Right. Down the hall, the mechanical engineers are pulling their hair out because all that glass turns the building into a greenhouse.
And then you require an air conditioning system the size of a school bus just to keep it cool.
And that massive cooling system blows the energy budget entirely.
Exactly. So this mediator steps in to stop the blame spiral. They run structured, remote alignment sessions using data to build trade-off matrices.
So they show the architect that by, say, incorporating dynamic glazing or exterior louvers, they can keep the view, shrink the HVAC system, and hit the electrification targets.
Right. They prevent millions of dollars in project delays caused by stubborn disciplinary silos.
Well, to avoid those arguments in the first place, you empower the designers early on. That is Role 64. The Passive Design Parametric Toolkit Builder, projected at up to $380,000.
Right, so rather than doing a slow custom analysis for every single project to figure out the best window-to-wall ratio, this role builds reusable software tools.
They're essentially turning the architectural expert into a software vendor.
That's a great way to look at it. They build parametric toolkits that let non-experts manipulate a 3D model and see the real-time energy impacts of their design choices.
And because they are creating a scalable product, they can sell licenses, offer training, and continuously charge for user interface improvements across the industry.
It's a brilliant business model.
Now, you optimize the present with software tools, but you also have to optimize for the future. Role 63 is the Building Code Future-Proofing Scenario Planner, making up to $390,000.
Their whole job is to anticipate where building codes will be in 5 to 10 years so the client doesn't accidentally build a stranded asset.
But they aren't using crystal balls to predict the future, right?
No. They're using policy tracking algorithms. They analyze progressive jurisdictions like the European Union or California and map those regulatory trends against their local projects.
So, okay, if a city is likely to implement a massive carbon tax on natural gas in 2030, and you are designing a building today with a gas boiler, this planner calculates the exact financial penalty of that future tax.
Right, versus the cost of upgrading to electric heating today.
They provide a mathematical justification for future-ready design.
Yes.
Now, predicting policy algorithms and building custom software toolkits sounds incredibly expensive for the client. How does a project pay for all this governance without just slashing the construction budget?
That brings us to protecting the money.
Role 62, the Sustainable Value Engineering Lead. Projected salary, up to $420,000. Now, traditionally, value engineering just means finding the cheapest possible materials and destroying the sustainability goals in the process.
Yeah, it's usually a race to the bottom. But this role does the exact opposite. They remove cost from the project without harming the environmental performance.
How do you do that?
They maintain a massive, proprietary database of alternative materials and safe substitutions.
I see it as a game of financial Jenga. You know, you are carefully pulling out the most expensive blocks from the budget, but you have to make sure the building's carbon targets and durability don't collapse.
Right, and they achieve that by collecting real-time cost signals from global supply chains. They might find a cladding material that costs 12% less but offers the exact same thermal performance.
And that direct, immediate improvement to the bottom line is why they command over $400,000 a year.
Absolutely.
While the value engineer is managing the specific line items, someone has to manage the overall vision. Role 61 is the owner's rep for sustainability, pulling in up to $450,000.
This is a remote oversight layer. Their entire job is to ensure the sustainability targets don't get quietly watered down by a dozen different contractors once construction begins.
Right. If you put yourself in the shoes of a billionaire portfolio owner, this role is your ultimate shield.
They are your dedicated remote proxy. They attend the grueling 4-hour coordination meetings so the owner doesn't have to.
They keep the decision logs, track the milestones, send concise executive summaries.
And they drastically reduce the owner's personal risk of delivering a non-compliant building.
Speaking of the owner's perspective, executives make decisions based on dollars, not just good intentions. Role 60 is the carbon cost planning consultant, making up to $500,000.
$500,000.
Oh,
Just let that sink in.
insane. They link the carbon impact directly to the money.
They operate a dual ledger. Every single design choice has a financial cost and an embodied carbon cost.
Because executives understand trade-offs.
Exactly. If a low-carbon steel beam costs slightly more upfront, but avoids future compliance penalties and boosts the asset's overall valuation, the executive needs to see that math clearly.
This consultant provides the roadmap showing where carbon reductions are the absolute cheapest to achieve.
Right.
Once you tie the carbon directly to the budget, the very next step is deciding what physical materials you are actually going to buy. We are entering the final segment of the ladder: procurement, core materials, and human outcomes.
This is where it gets really real.
Role 59 is the embodied carbon procurement coach at up to $520,000.
Procurement is the front line of the physical world. It's where grand sustainability aspirations either succeed or definitively fail.
Because if the procurement playbook isn't ironclad, contractors will just revert to buying the standard high-carbon materials they were familiar with.
Exactly, it's human nature. So this coach vets the suppliers and sets strict requirements for EPDs.
And for you listening, an EPD, an environmental product declaration, is basically a nutritional label for building materials.
That's a great analogy.
Instead of calories and fat, it tells you exactly how much carbon was emitted to forge that steel beam or manufacture that drywall. The coach ensures only materials with good nutrition make it to the site.
Which perfectly sets up Role 58, the low-carbon concrete mix spec strategist. Projected salary, up to $540,000.
I have to admit, when I first saw this, I was skeptical. Over $500,000 a year to act as an advisor on the formula for a concrete mix.
Yeah, it sounds overly niche, right? Until you understand the sheer volume involved. I mean, concrete is often the single biggest chunk of embodied carbon in any project.
And a massive portion of the structural budget, I imagine.
Absolutely. So this strategist advises on substituting traditional cement with SEM's supplementary cementitious materials like industrial fly ash or slag.
So they are essentially tweaking the recipe of the concrete bake.
Yes.
They are changing the ingredients so the manufacturing process pollutes less, but they have to make sure the cake still rises and hardens properly.
And the curing time is the critical variable here. If the new low-carbon recipe takes 7 days longer to cure, the entire construction schedule slips.
Which costs the client millions in labor and loan interest.
Exactly. This strategist balances the chemistry of the mix with the calendar of the construction site. Because concrete is used in such massive volumes, a 2% optimization in the mix formula saves an exponential amount of carbon and money.
Okay, the scale of the savings absolutely justifies the salary then. Similarly, Role 57 is the Timber Hybrid Structure Sustainability Advisor, making up to $560,000.
They help teams confidently switch away from traditional steel and concrete to mass timber or hybrid structural systems without derailing the project.
Because transitioning to mass timber is incredibly complex, right?
Oh, changes the entire constructability profile. This advisor manages the hidden risks that local teams might completely miss.
Like what?
For example, moisture protection. If it rains heavily on a mass timber site and the wood isn't properly sequenced and tarped, you risk massive rot and structural failure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they provide the highly specialized how-to-deliver roadmap to prevent a sustainable choice from becoming a logistical nightmare.
Well, we've made it to the very top of Tier 3, Role 56.
A pinnacle.
We've gone through baseline data, retrofit choreography, climate risk, concrete chemistry, and timber supply chains. And yet, the absolute highest paid role on this entire list is entirely focused on how the building makes the humans inside feel.
I love this one.
It's the Healthy Buildings Program Designer, focusing on WELL certifications and indoor environmental quality. $150,000 to $580,000 a year.
It brings the entire life cycle of the building full circle. A building is ultimately just a container for human activity.
So they design programs targeting ventilation and filtration, low-emitting materials, acoustic isolation, and circadian lighting.
But they aren't just chasing a plaque to hang in the lobby, right? They are building a governance system to continually prove the building is healthy.
Right. They eliminate things like VOCs, volatile organic compounds, off-gassing from cheap carpets that cause brain fog.
Because human performance is the ultimate economic driver. A rigorously healthy building attracts top-tier corporate tenants, it reduces employee sick days, and it significantly boosts productivity.
So the financial value of a highly productive workforce vastly outweighs the operational costs of the building itself.
Exactly. This role commands top dollar because it directly links the physical architecture to human capital optimization.
Incredible. So looking back at this entire descent down the ladder from Role 70 to 56, what is the grand takeaway for you, the listener, trying to understand the future of this industry?
I think it represents an irreversible evolution.
Yeah.
We are moving away from local, reactive, on-site problem solving
And shifting toward what?
toward remote, scalable, data-driven governance. These 15 roles demonstrate that sustainability and performance are no longer just marketing add-ons.
They are the core financial mechanisms steering the built environment.